Live, and I know what you're thinking. How did the computer screen become 100% more handsome and yet 100% less professional? Well, that's because I'm Seth Kaiser with the Chief of the North. This guy right here, nope, he's that guy, Dan Harms, who does not get a name plate tonight. And I'm just going to apologize in advance for the first of many ways that I am inferior to Ryan. We've taken over the live stream on Thursday. We're going to get crazy. We're going to have some fun. It's Thursday night live stream. Let's do this. And we are rolling. Dan, welcome to Thursday night. Does it feel different?
You know, usually I'm impersonating you, so this one I'm impersonating Ryan. I thought about just coming on with like a hat backwards and trying to actually pull it off a little bit, but I can't pull off a backwards hat, so I didn't even want to try to attempt that.
Sure. Ryan is often imitated and never duplicated. It's borderline impossible. By the way, you should know one of my traditions, everyone, is my buy boost. So today it's a boost because I'm sick. And so I need extra caffeine to get through this.
It's true.
So there's a lot of ground to cover today. We're in the live stream. We're going to have a ton of fun. Normally I get to take drinks while Ryan talks, so it's going to be a good time. So here's the plan for tonight. Dan, you tell me what you think of this. We're going to go through, I've got a bunch of topics. Everyone, you should know what a professional setup we have here. I showed Dan this immediately before we started talking.
Just like that, too.
Just like that, pretty much. I think it was upside down and written in Chinese. And we've got a number of topics we want to go through tonight. I'm excited. Yes, Cole, I am wearing Chiefs gear right here. You can see it. I do cheer for the Chiefs. I just, hide it well, apparently. And so I'm really, really excited to do this tonight. Thank you very much, Dan, for agreeing to come on with me. I found out, Ryan, you know how it is. He texted me, at the last minute or 3 days ago and was like, Seth, I need you to handle the live stream. And I said, well, okay, I guess I can. But I can't have it just be me talking to myself. We've all seen that. You, dear watcher, have seen that. Nobody needs that again. And Dan, you've come to save the day. And so I like this right here. Sorry, I get so distracted by the chats. Ryan's so professional, but these are some epic insights that are on point. Kelsey runs like Kyle Rudolph, but gets yak like Percy Harvin. I can't claim credit for that. It's the truth. He is the weirdest looking yards after catch guy I've ever seen. And I'm totally here for it. So tonight, it's not the normal Q&A night. We'll try to get to some questions if I happen to see them. If you put question marks in front of them, I might answer them. If you don't put question marks in front of them, we might anyway. I don't know. We're going to just roll through. Super chats are easier to see, people. I'm just saying. But I would never ask for your money because it's well established here. I hate money. And in fact, someone asked me that on Twitter. We might get around to that question at some point. So we are going to get going. If you want to ask a Q&A, we'll try to answer it. Or not. I don't know, but you can't expect the same level of professionalism without Ryan here.
I can tell you that much.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I use up all my professionalism during the day. I have to wear a tie. I have to say things like, well, Your Honor, given that the defendant has 3 previous crimes and a criminal history score, blah, blah. It's disgusting. No one likes it. We've got a super chat. Thank you, Zach. Says, bro, let's go. Love you, Seth. I love you too, man. Dan, your tweets make me laugh so much. Dan, let's talk about Twitter.
Let's talk about Twitter.
Twitter is one of those wonderful places that's actually a horrible place.
You're not wrong.
And it's so funny. Like 9/10 of our career in this weird industry relies on Twitter in a lot of ways for reach. But it's also the place that if I could take one part of this job away, it would absolutely be Twitter. Is Twitter your least favorite part of the job too, or is there something you like even less?
Twitter is how I found you, I found Ryan, I found all the people that I've been able to connect with to literally get me to the point where I'm at today, because I can tell you without Twitter, not only would I have not found Chiefs Twitter, I wouldn't have found the extensive reviews that you have at Arrowhead Pride, Arrowhead Addict, all this, never would have gotten involved in it. And I never would have started writing and watching film. So as much as we hate talking about Twitter, talking on Twitter, kind of just doom scrolling Twitter at times, I think,
what are they going to say now?
Exactly. Like we all find ourselves in that spot where we just sit there like, and I go through the feed like 5 different times, like, what am I doing? There's no reason to be doing this, but I attribute a lot of what I've gotten, where I've gotten to Twitter. So,
Same here.
The hardest. I don't really hate anything yet about that. Is that just because I'm young still? Like I've been in this 3 or 4 years.
Okay, we're gonna have to go ahead and wrap this up now that Dan's talking about how young. See, you're not cynical. You're not one of the olds. And I appreciate it about you. What a ray of sunshine that answer was. I like that. The lack of cynicism there. Dan, I do have to ask, how old are you?
I am 29 years old.
29 years old, man. I just hanging out with you in Briscoe, it keeps me young. I'm gonna address one question that I've actually seen a few times. Ralph says Mitch the Kitch was at Arrowhead today, was being tested. That would be absolute madness. 5 All-Pro linemen on deck. Even Seth could rush for 2,000 yards behind that line. First of all, no, I couldn't. Second of all, I don't know. I've heard people talking about Mitch Schwartz maybe being at Arrowhead today, maybe getting tested. There's any number of reasons he could have been at Arrowhead today taking a COVID test.
Mm-hmm.
He is working with the Athletic at times, doing like some. He appears with Robert Mays every now and then. Those two go a little ways back. I wouldn't read too much into it. I haven't seen Mitch recently, and even for me to call him Mitch is ridiculous because it's not like we're friends. But the last time I saw him do video content, he was 50 pounds light to play line. And that was like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know. What do you think, Dan? You think a Mitch Schwartz comeback is in the works?
Not this year. This is December 23rd. And right now, Mitch Schwartz has an excellent, cushy job. He appears with Robert Mays every single week. He gets to talk about football. He does an excellent job. I listen every week. They're talking about how important it is for having the run game in today's NFL. Like, he was great on that. But I find it extremely hard to believe that he could, even if he was getting tested to possibly be a reserve tackle. Okay. Mm-hmm. If he's, let's say he's 40 pounds lighter than he was, there's no way he could hold up to some of the pass rushers as he used to, even with the technique that he has, the pristine technique. It's just physically not possible. I don't even think he's fully back in actual weight training yet. I don't think he's able to do that yet.
It's great for him that he's getting healthier. And that would be an incredible story. The way things ended with Jamal Charles taught me that those stories usually don't end that way. Mm-hmm. Usually, eventually once health becomes a big enough thing, you gotta do the smart thing. And Mitch Schwartz has a lot of interests outside of football or even related to football. He's going to have a career in broadcasting if he wants it, or analyzing if he wants it. We're hiring at the Chief of the North. We're not, but I mean, I probably would hire.
Make a spot for Mitch Schwartz. I'll tell you that much.
Please let me write for your extremely niche newsletter that reaches several thousand people. Yeah, absolutely. I hope he does whatever he feels like doing, because he's taken a beating. He's played awesome. Huge reason they won a Super Bowl. I, to this day, regret that only one time I wrote about how key he was to winning that Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Because everything else was falling apart on the line. His presence was the one thing that kept it from looking like the Buccaneers Super Bowl.
Yep.
Because he had one guy holding up. All right, Stevie, how you doing, man? Always good to see your avatar. Had a great time filming The Huddle with Big Chief Sean. Sean, next time I see him, high-fiving you, my friend. Airing tomorrow sometime. Should have a great watch party on Discord. Merry Christmas, Seth. Merry Christmas, Stevie. I got to make sure. Oops, I'm going to just bring that one up again because I don't know how to do this. The Judge, thank you for the super chat. All I want for Christmas is a James Winchester film review. I can handle that right now. Or no, actually, we're going to start with you. Dan, give us a film review for James Winchester in 2 sentences or less.
Perfect snap. Literally.
It's time after time. And, long snapper is a lot like the presence of toilet paper in your bathroom. You don't ever think about it until it's not there. And then it's all you can think about, and it's a huge problem.
The way you just come with references. That's one thing that in my entire film, like filming myself making videos, it's one thing that's the most difficult thing for me to do is make references, make it easier for people to understand what I'm doing. By the way, you just like, oh yeah, here's a reference that everyone understands very, very easily. It's awesome.
Oh, man, if I'd known you were going to compliment me, I'd have been like, Ryan, why can't we have Dan on the show? Well, I appreciate that. There are a few things in life that I'm good at, and making mindless comparisons happens to be one of them. They don't always even, make sense or are applicable, but I make them, and that's the point. All right, so I'm going to keep scrolling through. I want to make sure I don't miss any super chats here. There's lots of people saying things. Gooch is clearly thrilled, and I just appreciate that.
He's pretty happy about it.
Look at this guy. Look at this happy customer right here.
You know what, Gooch? You're here. Yep. That's what matters,
and you
man.
Can't take your eyeballs off. And that, you know what? Stevie makes a good point here. I don't even have on my coordinated Raider suit. So you're not only getting the B team, you're getting a B team effort. All right, we got another couple super chats here that I want to make sure that I get to. And I've got a couple things that I really want to talk about tonight. All right, from your guys' opinion, what are the top 5 offensive lines of all time? Now, I'm going to take that O-lines. I'm going to take that as the O-line in its entirety, not offensive linemen. So I'll tell you what. I don't know if we'll be able to do top 5. If you think of a group, you get to start, and I know what's going to happen here. So you go ahead and take the obvious one.
It's the 2003 Tennessee Chiefs offensive line. That's one of the only ones that I really know. I'm not my extensive research of the history of offensive lines and full offensive lines is not super extensive. Yep. But I think they're clearly one. I also, honestly, I know people don't really know about it, but the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line from what was the year they won the Super Bowl, like 2017, I think it was. That was an excellent offensive line with guys who are going to be in Hall of Fame in a couple of years. I know Jason Kelce will be. I know Lane Johnson will be. Brandon Peters will be. Like, they're all going to be in there. So they got some guys.
Well, and that was Peters at his peak, too. And Peters is still playing good football at, I think he's like 3 or 4 years older than me. And we don't talk about that enough. Like, I get what Tom Brady's doing is incredible. Yep. Playing tackle decently at 40.
Andrew Whitworth is literally 40 years old, and he's still an elite tackle. It's ridiculous.
That's so weird. That's a really good pick there with the Eagles. I would add something in there with that 2003, 2004, 2005 line. They also had Jason Dunn and Tony Richardson, 2 of the best blockers at their position in history. That's why when I always call that the greatest run blocking group ever assembled, because people want to talk about the Cowboys offensive line of the early 90s, which would be another one that would be in my top 5. I would say, they were great. They had good fullback as well. But Dunn and Richardson added a little something extra. There's a reason everywhere Richardson went, even after he left the Chiefs, running backs always did well because he was a guy who could move pretty much like a running back, but he hit like a fullback. So he got to his spot so much faster than anyone was expecting. With that Chiefs line, people often compare modern Chiefs offensive lines to that line. And I'm here to tell you, stop. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean that in it's just not fair kind of way, because you were talking about guys. If you just talk about, let's take Brian Waters, multiple-time Pro Bowler, probably the best offensive lineman on most lines. He would be like the anchor. And he was the 3rd best player on that line. That's insane. Will Shields is as good a guard as ever lived. Willie Roaf, when healthy, was as good a tackle as ever lived. You just don't find lines like that. No, you don't find lines where Weidman was a Pro Bowler that year.
Yeah, he was.
He was their 4th best guy. And so those are a couple. I would say, and I apologize in advance for saying this, some of those Denver Bronco offensive lines, when the zone scheme was kind of getting out of hand and people didn't really know how to block it as well in the late 90s especially, those were great lines, and they drove me crazy. But they were great. So, oh, man, I see Red Royce in the comment is having an existential crisis because of your age, Dan.
I'm sorry. I can't.
I don't know why you would do this to someone.
I'm sorry.
Gooch, Hey, good to see you as well. Brian, Gooch, good to see you, Gooch. Good to see you, Seth. Hope your vacation was great. Hi, Dan. Merry Christmas to you both. Merry
Merry
Christmas, Gooch.
Christmas.
Always appreciate you. I did have a great vacation. Let me just tell everyone here. Anna Maria Island, Gulf Coast of Florida, especially if you have a family, awesome vacation place. So if you're looking for a relaxed place with beautiful shores that's a little more chill, that's the place to go to. Man, how does Ryan scroll through these things? Now, this is
I
an
don't know.
interesting. Yeah, he makes it look so easy. Bring Nate Taylor set. You know what? I'm gonna. One of these days, I'm going to twist his arm enough. The day before Christmas Eve felt a little intense, but so
Yeah, a little
all
bit.
right. I think we're caught up on super chats. I think, and if I missed one of
I think
yours,
so.
I'm just gonna tell you. Well, I'm flawed, and so are you. So. All right. Big issue of the week, Dan. Obviously, COVID list. Who's in? Who's out? We've got a list right now. Who's out currently? As we record at 6:16 or record as we live stream at 6:16 on December 23rd. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Nick Bolton, Harrison Butker, Lucas Niang, Rashad Fenton, Kyle Long, Armani Watts, Blake Bell, Garrett Dieter. So those guys are out. Guys who are back, and not all of this is COVID list stuff, well, at least one isn't. The guys who we found out were back today or yesterday is Charvarius Ward, Chris Jones, Willie Gay Jr., Josh Gordon, L'Jarius Sneed. So you tell me from that list what's on where are you at right now mentally in terms of being prepared for this game, what you think in terms of what that list looks like and what that does to the Chiefs.
So obviously it's not ideal for your offense. I think you still have some issues on the offensive line, and clearly your two best offensive weapons out on the team, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, are still trying to get the way back. The defense looks much better than it did 2 days ago. They had a bunch of guys not there. Now you still have Chris Jones back. You're going to have Willie Gay. You're going to have L'Jarius Sneed. And Charvarius Ward. Huge bump for everybody because I think your defense, if it absolutely needed to, could put points on the board if your offense is finding some struggles against the Pittsburgh defense, which it could. They're also having some COVID-related stuff. Devin Bush is out. So that's a pretty big loss for them if he can't be cleared. But there's also there's still optimism, I believe, within the Chiefs organization that some of these guys, including Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, can get cleared by Saturday. You only need one negative test now without symptoms. So that's huge for the way that they can play. And I still believe that as long as Patrick Mahomes is healthy, which I'm pretty sure he's in a bubble right now, and he's just by himself and just reporting via virtual headset or what it is to keep himself healthy for the game and get him an offensive line, they're going to find a way to put points on the board. And the biggest thing I was worried about is that Ben Roethlisberger is he can't move anymore. Okay, he can't do anything.
Right.
But if you don't have at least guys on defense to play, he can still find the first read and get into some of his playmakers. So that was one of the only things that I had a little bit of a worry about. But right now, as the defense is getting healthy, getting back on there, Chris Jones being there is huge. And I think that's going to unlock a guy named Melvin Ingram to have himself a nice little revenge game against a team he didn't like to play for.
Yeah, I think the Steelers game is more of a revenge game for Ingram. And is it a real revenge game? I don't know. But players use this stuff for motivation, and it matters. Yeah. That's more so than the Chargers. It seems like he parted with the Chargers on fairly amicable terms. The fan base there really likes him. I think they made a mistake letting him walk. Personally, their pass rush isn't as good without him. He's an excellent complementary piece to Bosa. He used to give Schwartz more problems than almost anyone else. And I'm not saying he's the best pass rusher that Schwartz faced, but his manner of winning seemed to just bug Schwartz a little bit more than other guys. One thing that I would note here is that with Willie Gay Jr. back, with Bolton out, you've kind of flipped. That's a big deal in terms of had Bolton been out, that would have been a bummer to have both of them because they become a really big part of the team. And we're going to try to get to talk about them a little bit later. We've got a super chat here. One thing to note, and we'll circle back to this in a second here. Charvarius Ward back. He was one of during that slaughter on Monday when person after person was, being named out. He was one of them. And so now it's Thursday. He's already back. That's good news, and it might speak to the new protocol that you only need one negative test and be asymptomatic. That might result in them, like you said, getting a few guys back. All right, we've got another super chat from Gooch. Thank you very much, Gooch. How does Creed be the best center in the league become a Pro Bowl alternate? And Dan, where's the vid on him? Let's start in reverse. Dan, where's that video?
We've talked at length about Creed Humphrey and a lot of different offensive reviews. I thought it was, for specifically this week, considering the weapons possibly being out, I wanted to touch on how in the Chargers game, they used Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce to get each other open a lot. You can still scheme up some of the same ways, some of the same looks for Byron Pringle, McCole Hardman, and everybody else that's going to be playing. So I thought it was a little bit more important this week to show how you can still produce offensively. And I mean, I even zeroed in on a great play of Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith just taking a stunt from Joey Bosa and just literally not even flinching about it. They just passed them off like never even happened. Like it wasn't a big deal. It was one of the most impressive things for two rookies to do that I have ever seen from an offensive line. They play the game like they're 5-6 year vets, and it's so impressive to watch. But as we get closer to the end of the season, we are going to have a video solely on Creed Humphrey and the offensive line, how it's been way better than people want to give it credit for this year. It's been in the works. I've been trying to get I reached out to Twitter to try and get Mitch Schwartz on RHGR to try to talk to him about the offensive line. Probably not going to happen, but worth a shot.
He is pretty locked down on state secrets when it comes to the Chiefs often enough. So if you guys want to talk about Creed Humphrey, we all know he's my new large adult son.
Yes.
Miss you, Mitch Morse, but life moves on, and so have I. And I would argue that for one, Creed is undoubtedly a better player than Morse was as a rookie.
Correct.
I think he might be a better player than Morse is currently.
Ever was.
And there's a couple reasons for that. I know, Dan, if I recall, one of the concerns you had with him coming out, you weren't sure about that functional strength,
Correct.
Standing up against bull rushers, and necessarily maybe moving the needle at the point of attack, because he didn't always show it in college quite as consistently as he wanted. He wasn't really losing snaps.
Correct. It was more of just the stalemate kind of stuff, which we saw a lot from centers in the past, which can affect the run game and things like that.
Right. And that's one of those things when you're looking at a college prospect, you have to extrapolate that to the NFL level because they are playing guys bigger, stronger, faster. So being at a stalemate snap after snap makes you think, okay, if I extrapolate that, what does that mean? But instead, what he's done is it's the same thing, maybe more so, honestly.
Yeah.
As a pro, does he look stronger to you as a pro than he did in college?
100%. He's also using his hands better. It's not he's locating them better. I think what we're attributing all this to is that his work in the offseason coming from college to here, and Andy Heck has done a phenomenal job with him and Trey Smith to get them coached up to literally just say, here, use your God-given talents and just do exactly what you're good at, and I'm going to tweak things here and there, and it's made them all – I believe fully that Creed Humphrey's an all-pro center. He might not get it, but he is an all-pro center, and Trey Smith is very much worthy of being a Pro Bowl right guard, very much so.
It's worth noting, the way I saw someone phrase it is that usually guys make the Pro Bowl 2 years later than they should and continue to make it 2 years after they should stop. Here's one thing I'll say. So Gooch, you're asking about a Trey Smith film review at the Chief of the North newsletter.
It is that.
bit.ly/Seth really hates money. You can subscribe for $12 a year forever, blah, 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 self-promotion, etc. I reviewed 6 games of Humphrey during the bye week. And the biggest thing that I look for with offensive linemen is loss percentage, because that's what's important. That's what can really torpedo a play. Win percentage is fun. I love watching Trey Smith knock dudes out. That's awesome. But what really matters with offensive linemen the most is that you don't lose. Creed Humphrey's loss percentage, what I generally look for, 10% is kind of the demarcation line for me. If you're a starter, you should probably only lose 10% or less every game. Obviously, the lower the better. Usually a really good offensive lineman, you're probably going to be more around like that 6%, something like that. It just varies depending on the position and what you're asked to do, because not all offenses are the same. Creed Humphrey, loss percentages, 1.5%, 3.9%, 2.5%, 3.0%. His worst game that I charted, 5.6%. Dallas, 1.5%. 3%! He's gave up in those 6 games I charted. He gave up 1 pressure, 2 hits, and 1 sack. It was a great pass rush by the Eagles guy, Hargrove.
Oh, Javon Hargrave, yeah.
Thank you. See, that's because you actually pay attention to the draft. It was a great rush by him. The man has been unbelievably consistent. And that's one thing where I would say I am happy that Trey Smith gets all the attention he gets. He's had a good year. Those two, though, they're not playing at the same level because Creed Humphrey's consistency sets him apart. Trey Smith will have a couple snaps every game where his feet don't quite go where he wants them to. His hands get a little bit off, and he has a loss. With Creed, it almost never happens. But again, you're comparing really good to awesome.
Exactly.
So it's not a knock on Creed. The last cheese ball. All right. Thank you for the super chat. I feel like 87-10 being out could possibly provide some benefit by forcing Mahomes to connect with other guys and maybe force some guys to step up. What do you think, Dan?
So I think we've kind of seen a little bit of this before, but it's never been Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Ever been that. So as much as I'm all for seeing what Noah Gray can do and seeing some other guys step up, we know already from some playing experience that McCole Hardman cannot do physically what Tyreek Hill can do. When you put him in that role and ask him basically to do what Tyreek Hill does, it's going to be different. And I'm willing to bet that a Pittsburgh Steelers defense wants to play more man coverage without Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and say, all right, you don't have your 2 best guys. Beat us in man coverage. And it's going to be up to Patrick Mahomes. As much as Andy Reid likes to scheme up players and scheme everybody up to make throws easier for Patrick, I think we're seeing a little bit of a persistence on always making it that way and taking less of those window throws. He's not throwing it into as many tighter windows as we've seen in the past. Whether that's to do with the way defenses are playing him, forcing him to play underneath a bit. It is what it is. It might be up to him to do that a little bit more with guys like Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson, who I think have good hands through the catch point, and that's challenged them a little bit. And I don't disagree that you want to see, obviously, like I said, what Noah Gray can do, what Byron Pringle specifically, and hopefully McCole Hardman with that expanded role can do with some of these catches. For me, it's up to the trust of Mahomes that I don't necessarily think he has in everybody to really take that through. So it's a good and a bad situation that you hope guys can step up, and if they don't, you have to hope Patrick Mahomes can continue to make those contested window throws that he used to a little bit earlier in his career.
You're going to see, I would assume, you're going to see some really aggressive man coverage looks
yes.
from the Steelers. That's what I would do. The one thing, if they're really aggressive with man coverage, you're going to probably have more opportunities for scrambling by Mahomes. A lot's going to depend on the pass protection. If that holds up, he'll find guys.
Correct.
But it is an opportunity for someone to step up. Whether or not they do, we'll see, because that's tougher. And it makes me wonder about the game plan approach they might use, but we'll come back to that after we make sure we get through the super chats. Gooch, thank you again. Not that I want it, but this could help Manny. PM15 Mahomes. Oh man, that's gonna get a comment. Gain confidence in our other wide receivers. You have to throw them. That's exactly what you were just talking about, Dan. I think Pringle has earned that confidence and lost that confidence and earned that confidence and lost that confidence a few times. He's had a few games where he struggled a little bit with drops. Then he's had a few games where he's made some great catches. He's just not a guy who creates separation a ton on his own. He's got a ceiling. I wouldn't be stunned if Demarcus Robinson were kind of the guy. He's taken kind of a back seat this year compared to previous years, which is interesting to me. But of everyone, he's the guy who knows the offense the best. He's the guy that's been with Mahomes the longest. So that might be something to keep an eye on. But it is an opportunity for them to gain some confidence that they can actually move with going forward once they have everyone back in play. And that could be a long-term benefit.
And using Clyde in the passing game a little bit more. Cough.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something? DT, thank you for the super chat. Is this other kicker we have any good?
Elliott Fry's not a bad kicker, but you're talking about replacing the second best kicker in the NFL. So you're always going to see a drop off. No matter what you do, you can talk about it till the cows come home, but there will be a drop off. I don't necessarily think that he's going to be like if it comes down to a kick, I don't think that he's going to, be a detriment to the whole team. If he misses it, he misses it. That's kind of how the kicks go in the NFL, but he's not a bad kicker. He's not bad by any stretch.
Right. There's a difference there. The biggest difference for me is the level of confidence I'm going to have if it comes down to a game-winning kick. Butker has had some issues occasionally with yips on extra points and that kind of stuff. He's not perfect, but when it comes to game-winning stuff, I trust that dude. Like that guy, he's had games where he's missed a couple. The game winner, 50 yards out, no problem. And you need that in a kicker. It's a lot like corner. You need that short memory. If it comes down to the kicker against a Steelers team that is flawed, then I think some other stuff has gone wrong. Exactly. The judge, yes. Thank you again. How long till the Townsends challenge the Colquitts for interstellar punting dominance? I think the Townsends, I haven't checked the brother. If he has hair remotely as fabulous, I think that time is now. You really, or you could just let the Colquitts get a couple of years older. It's like what I always tell my dad. I'm just waiting for him to get a little more decrepit, then I'm coming for him. That's a running joke my dad and I have, which now he's about 63, so I'm going to give it about 7 more years because he still scares me. But then I'm coming like a freight train. So maybe that's what the Townsends ought to do. All right, let's see. Any more super chats? Oh, my goodness. You guys are awesome, by the way. William Bradley says, after seeing Josh Gordon block, I've been wondering if he might be a good tight end given his size and receiving skills. Thoughts? Josh Gordon is very big. Honestly, out there, he looks about Fortson's size, give or take. What do you think? Would you try that out?
So, no, because you have to be able to play in line to be a tight end. Blocking in line in terms of coming out of the three-point stance is much more difficult than setting up as a wide receiver. It's a much different skill set. You have to understand where to place your hands coming out of your stance, having that hip power to your hands into the chest. It's a much different strategy. Unless he's practiced it in the past, it would not be a good idea just to say, hey, Josh, go ahead. Line up out there as our tight end, as our number 2 tight end, and just kind of like throw your body around. I feel like it's a pretty bad strategy to get someone possibly clocked in not a great way. So I'm a no.
The Chiefs offense with the primary tight end, and even at times with their secondary tight end, they ask them to do a little more move stuff. They some of the blocking they do, they're coming around the edge and they're cutting guys off as opposed to trying to be straight inline blockers. So you can get away with some stuff with the Chiefs. But overall, I mean, it's not even just a matter of physicality in terms of being physically able to do something. When you've spent your whole career playing wide receiver, there's a certain just way of dealing with contact that you have honed over thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. That's not easy to change overnight, or even over the course of a year. So I don't see it. People want that with every big receiver, and then every fast tight end, they want them to be a receiver. I personally think it's kind of like how all actors want to be rappers and all rappers want to be actors. It's we all just want what we don't have. So I like this prediction that the idea of Byron Pringle going off for 100+ yards and that whole blessing in disguise. A lot of people are optimistic about gaining some trust and that sort of thing. We'll see. For me, it really is just a matter. The problem is even one game. We've seen Hardman have really good games. Last year, when Hill missed a little time, Hardman did some good stuff in an increased role. The problem is doing it week in and week out. All of these guys are in the NFL. There's your analysis. Boom. But yeah, I know. I'm very good at this. The thing about that is that the worst player in the NFL is an awesome football player. And they are going to have days, whether it's because of matchup or whatever, that they are going to have a great, great, great game. And they just stand out a little bit. And the problem is doing it week in and week out. Christian Ponder had some great games. Quarterback.
That's a name for you.
Well, I'm from Minnesota, so. But he had some great games. Now, not many, but they did happen. And so then what happens is that's why really whenever I review one game of a player, we're looking for traits and we're looking to maybe look at the why things happened in that particular game. However, you can't extrapolate too much from one game. And that brings me to talk about Nick Bolton a little bit, because I think we're caught up with Super Chats. Bolton, have you watched his snaps from Thursday?
Incredible. Yeah, he's from where he was to start the season. It's a night and day difference. I mean, granted, he's not excellent in coverage, which you're not asking him to be. They didn't ask him to run in man coverage. That's all I care about. Don't ask him to run in man coverage, and he'll be fine. He'll do exactly what you want him to do.
Right. And so I'm curious. So I wrote a whole thing on Bolton, which again is available at the Chief of the North newsletter. This was actually unlocked for everyone to read because I thought it would be something that people would be interested in. Maybe I'll drop a link in the comments section here if I find a way to talk and do that at the same time. No one should hold their breath. So the big thing with Bolton is that he's not a guy that has a ton of speed, right? He's not a guy who can make up for, being, if he's out of position, it's over for him. See how I can talk and chew gum at the same time here? He is a guy who, he ran like a 4.6 or something like that. He's not terribly unathletic, but he's not so athletic that he can make up for taking a wrong step somewhere. Willie Gay Jr., different thing. You have snaps last year where he'd bite 2 or 3 steps on play action, but it didn't matter because he looks like a safety when he just, boom, he takes off. Mm-hmm. So what I saw with Bolton, and Dan, tell me what you think. And if you think I'm wrong and crazy, just tell me, because it would not be the first time. So what I saw earlier in the year was a guy who was also a tick slow, recognizing the routes coming in and out of his zones and following the quarterback's eyes, and he looked uncomfortable when he dropped back, even as the hook guy, even with short, shallow zone responsibilities, he just looked uncomfortable. He looked kind of flat-footed. Didn't look like that on Thursday. He looked a lot more confident and competent, kind of seeing where things were coming. And that's where a couple of those passes defensed came from. It's not that he showed this incredible closing speed. It's that he was already, say, the first drive. As he got that pass breakup on the goal line. As the ball's coming out, he's already moving towards the catch point. Mm-hmm. And at the NFL level, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 seconds, it's all the difference in the world. That's what I'm seeing that's different. Are you seeing anything like that, or have I just lost my mind completely?
No, that's exactly. It's exactly what it is. This is what he did in college. This is why he was drafted where he was, because this is the kind of player he was in college. He didn't have to do a whole lot sideline to sideline, but if you keep him in front, get his eyes on the quarterback, he makes plays in his zone. Now the difference was the speed of the game. The NFL speed is so much different, even from the SEC level to here. It's not different. So early in the season, he's second guessing himself because he doesn't want to trigger too early and be caught, behind, have someone go for a huge play behind him. Now he's more comfortable. He's more confident. And again, they're using him to his strengths, letting him trigger downhill, not get too far from one side to the other side, stay in your zone, react to the receivers coming into your area, and then break. That's all they're making him do, and it's working. He looks like a completely different linebacker, specifically from the Ravens game to now. The Ravens game was one of those games where he had some good plays, but you could see he wasn't able to read everything properly. He was getting a step behind. He was a little bit late on some of the motions and things like that. This is a game against one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he didn't look out of place. Yep. That's huge.
And all they need from him is to be average in pass defense. Now, if he can be more than that, great. That would be amazing, because as much as inside linebacker is a position that it gets a little bit taken for granted at this point, because a high-level coverage backer can do a lot for your defense. Yes. But really, with some of the responsibilities, it's kind of similar to what the responsibilities they've asked Hitchens to do. You just got to be average at it. You got to be okay. And the difference with him and the role Hitchens has had the last few years is now they have Willie Gay Jr. on the roster. So you have these other types of assignments you don't have to ask Bolton to do, like they've asked Hitchens to do in the past, and he just couldn't do it. Neiman to do, couldn't do it. Wilson to do, couldn't do it. You can ask Gay to be the one who handles running backs out of the backfield. He will shut them down completely. Yeah. He can cover tight ends. He's an exceptional athlete. So there's a difference there. With Bolton, what you need from him is to be the plus player that he is moving towards the line of scrimmage, and just okay, not a weakness on the back end. And if he can be more than that, that would just be gravy.
Exactly.
And so he's one of the guys. We already covered it. So here's a question for you. Once Bolton's back, assuming he comes back healthy and everything from being on the COVID list, what would you do about the linebacker snaps moving forward?
I mean, I said it before when Anthony Hitchens came back from his injury. I would have Willie Gay at the will, because I think that's his best position in terms of using his speed properly.
Mm-hmm.
Get Nick Bolton as your Mike. Nick Bolton already has shown you everything you need to see out of him to be your Mike. And you can have Hitchens be out there as in your base set as a Sam type of player that can also help Bolton in terms of lining up correctly if he needs it. And then from there on out, you have the nickel situation, which they've already kind of shown you they're getting more comfortable using Gay and Bolton on the field at the same time.
Who's your dime backer if you had a choice?
If I had a choice, it would be Willie Gay, but I'm not sure if he's able mentally to do everything that it requires. I know that Bolton had some snaps at dime backer against the Chargers. I think that was more out of necessity. He didn't look terrible at it, but ideally it would be Gay. It was more about the mental side to really know that.
It's fascinating to me that they used Bolton in those snaps because most of this year they've done it. They've had Hitchens or Neiman in that role, and both those guys were healthy. They were able to play, but they still put Bolton out there. You can tell that it's either Spagnuolo or House. They have this preference for linebackers they view as kind of heady guys who really know the system.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see Gay and Bolton making those strategies. And maybe that would be a reason Bolton might leapfrog Gay in that dime role even. In a perfect world, though, it's absolutely Willie Gay Jr. because his instincts in coverage look excellent.
Yeah.
But it might just be an issue of the system, so who knows. Speaking of issues.
Uh-oh.
What do you – so did you see the latest – we're always outraged about something. This week, Chiefs Kingdom was outraged about a individual who covers the Steelers writing an article, and one of the blurbs in it was how little Melvin Ingram has done, which, you know what, look, everyone's got a job to do. I don't know the guy personally. I'm sure he's a nice guy. But basically what he'd said was because Ingram's got 1 sack and 3 quarterback hits and showing the Chiefs he's doing very little. Tell me your thoughts on that, Dan.
If I could, there'd be the meme, me, stretching out my fingers, hitting all caps, and then starting to go. Because we all know, because we watch the Chiefs every week, that's the one thing that these people, unfortunately, when you're not covering that team, you can't see everything behind what goes on. He's unlocked a lot within this defense, and I think that his run defense has actually been a bigger improvement over guys like Alex Okafor and Mike Dannon to an extent, because he adds a speed element that they don't have. They don't have at edge rusher. So it's a completely unfathomable position to be putting into saying that he hasn't done anything. Right. And I know that to an extent, we all sometimes just kind of look at box score and say, oh, okay, that gives you a general idea. Yeah, it gives you a general idea, but you have to back that up with physical evidence that you've seen. So, Melvin Ingram has impacted I think even in the game on Sunday, he was more impactful than the box score suggests, which is kind of the whole point of Melvin Ingram. He hasn't put up a ton of numbers yet, but he's made strides.
Exactly. And what's remarkable is he made an impact on Sunday when the Chiefs didn't even play Sunday.
Oh, man,
and
it was incredible.
That is even better. I absolutely agree. And so I couldn't help myself. I wrote a whole article about it, about pass rush. Kind of what I did is I took this specific example and I tried to talk about the Chargers game because I've had a few people talk to me. Oh man, the pass rush was terrible against the Chargers. I would just say this: Justin Herbert can really play, and had it been any but a handful of other quarterbacks, I think the Chiefs probably have a sack or 2 in that game. And Herbert just did an excellent job. And sometimes guys just make plays. And so the thing to remember when you're talking about a pass rusher, yes, sacks and quarterback hits matter over time. And why do I say over time? Because they are partly a function of luck. An easy example of this would be if you get a quick win right up the middle, say you're Chris Jones. You destroy the guard, But no one else got any pressure that play. So the quarterback's just able to run away from you, and someone also didn't contain the edge. And so there's no real sack, and you don't get a sack, you don't get a hit. You might get that pressure. That's why pressures are a better stat.
Mm-hmm.
But you might also have a snap where you win fairly handily. This is Melvin Ingram a lot because he wins with power, even though he's. I had people ask, isn't he undersized for Spag's system? Technically, yes, but he plays like he is about 30 pounds heavier and 3 inches taller.
Yep.
I mean, he's just strong player. Let's say you walk the right tackle back into the pocket 2 yards. Football is a game of timing and precision. And if you prevent the quarterback from being where he wants to be, he has to move. What that does is it creates higher odds for pressure elsewhere because you open up rushing lanes. But that might not be a pressure even. And so some of it is dependent on what everyone else is doing, how the quarterback reacts, how the offensive lineman reacts, what the play call is, all these things. Now, those things should even out over time. Right? The larger the sample size is, the less luck is going to be a factor. But football, by nature, is a game of very small sample sizes, right? Let's say you were going to go to the casino and you're going to play the slots, and you did 30 times. And then you said, well, my luck is bound to turn. I've done 30 whole times. Like, that's not what that means. You could flip heads 30 times in a row. And that doesn't mean you're necessarily about to change, or it could be, 75% of the time and all that. Odds, they even out over time. But in football, especially with pass rushing, because now you've narrowed it down to 30, 40, 50 snaps maybe, because pass rushers they rotate in and out. That takes weeks, months, the entire year. There was one season where Chris Jones had like under half a dozen sacks. People are like, oh, he's not that good a pass rusher, and it's like, are you insane? And so you have to account for that, and you should watch for the way that it impacts the games, not just what shows up on the stat sheet. And Melvin Ingram, I really like that you talked about his impact on the run game, because he, combined with Bolton, added some much-needed physicality.
Yes.
Zach Farmer, I'm not sure if this has been asked already, but are you guys worried about the game Sunday with everyone out? That has been asked already, but since you super chatted, we'll talk about it a little more. And what are your thoughts on Bolton not making the Pro Bowl? Let's actually cover that. I'm pretty okay about it. And I'll say why in a minute. But I'm curious, Dan, do you think Bolton is a potential Pro Bowler?
So here's the thing about linebackers. They are typically supposed to be the tackle and stat collectors of your defense. That's what they do. Your defensive front is supposed to open up holes so the linebackers can get those tackles. They run the ball, things like that. That's how it's supposed to work. And you rack up a lot of tackles, and I think that he's leading the NFL in total tackles for loss, something like that, as a rookie.
Deal.
That's a big deal, yes. There's a thing about 2 down linebackers. I don't have any issues with Nick Bolton in the system. He's doing exactly what he's being asked, and I think he's playing much better than I expected him to. But if you look around the league at the linebackers that are getting Pro Bowl recognition, they typically are studs like Darius Leonard, Fred Warner, guys that can actually do everything at a very high level. And as a rookie whose name isn't known as well around the league, you're not going to get that fan recognition. You're not going to get, I know that probably a lot of Chiefs fans voted for Nick Bolton to be a Pro Bowl guy, but they probably didn't vote nearly as much as they voted for Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, things like that. So that's going to bump you down as well. And league recognition, as we've seen from Creed Humphrey, who led the fan vote for all centers in the NFL. It shows you that the NFL recognition still has power in some of these places like linebacker and offensive line. So I don't think he's earned it to this point to be a Pro Bowler, but we talked a little bit about how sometimes it takes them 2 years later to actually get there and things like that.
Right. He hasn't been healthy as frequently, obviously, but I think Willie Gay's been the superior player when they're both healthy. And that's not a knock on, similar to when I was talking about Humphrey and Smith. I'm talking about at a lower level here. I think Gay has been just as important to the run defense.
Yes.
Wildly physical. He almost doesn't get credit for how physical he is because of how athletic he is. But he is in my mind, I think he's the superior player right now. Doesn't mean Bolton is just rapidly ascending.
Yes.
And we want to see Gay stay healthy and see them both on the field. I would say that because up until this last game, really, Bolton had kind of struggled in coverage and wasn't really seeing that much of the field.
Yeah.
I mean, he was seeing like 25% of the snaps, give or take, in plenty of games, maybe between 25 and 40%. It just wasn't – it was starting to come around, but not nearly as much. So that would have been premature. Although Denzel Perryman made it, so what do I know?
We know nothing because Denzel Perryman is clearly a superior linebacker.
Yeah, we clearly know nothing. All right, the judge, thank you very much for the super chat. Best Christmas movie, Die Hard or Reindeer Games? Dan, I'm leaving that to you. I know what I'm picking.
Die Hard.
Yippee-ki-yay. So we've got 9 minutes left, and I'll try to keep an eye on the super chats. I actually had something come up today that made me start to think, which is generally dangerous, but today I kind of enjoyed it. It's very early to start talking about the offseason. Obviously, I think the Chiefs are going to make a bunch of noise.
Yeah.
But people were one of the questions making the round on Chiefs Twitter is, if you have to pick between Orlando Brown and Tyrann Mathieu, who would you pick? My response was, I don't think they have to pick. And so I refused, which really wasn't fair. I don't think that was the game. But that's what I did. So it got me thinking because a lot of people were like, yeah, but what about money and that kind of stuff? So, Dan, do you play around ever with over the cap calculator?
I am not a huge cap person. Now, that's going to be something I need to fold into my repertoire over this offseason, specifically because of the different ways the Chiefs can save money, the different ways they can spend money. Yeah, so, yes, it will be something that I'm going to be doing more of as we get closer. I can tell you that much.
Let me talk you through now the numbers at over the cap. They're not perfect. They're going to be subject to some variance, but they're pretty good. Couple things if you're worried about the salary cap. And so, Dan, I'm going to tell you some things. Interject whenever you feel like it, and you tell me whether that surprises you, doesn't surprise you, what you think that helps them do, whatever. Okay. So the 2022 cap probably going to be a little lower than what over the cap's thinking. But right now, what they're estimating, because it's supposed to go up like another like 20 million after this year, because the NFL is making a lot of money, guys.
Yeah, lots of money.
And that's going to continue with the COVID blip year. Things were going up. The new TV rights deals are insane, and they're going to keep getting insane. DirecTV is probably going to lose a bidding war to someone for the whole Sunday ticket, which please, Lord, let that happen. And so, I mean, it's going to be a big deal because the NFL is one of the last entities in this with the advent of streaming and everything. Live events are hard. Advertisers want those, but they're hard to come by. Live events that people got to watch. Sports, one of the few things that it's like that. In the NFL, you can't even compare other leagues to them. Yeah. So they're still in that position right now. I mean, like 18 million households or whatever tuned in to watch the Bears game. It's like
it was ridiculous.
Yeah, what is wrong with you people?
Like the highest rated Monday Night Football game in years, and it was Vikings and Bears.
Yeah, it is. I don't know how, but whatever. People have issues. So the salary cap is going to keep going up, and that's something that matters. So you file that away. So here's what I'll tell you. So we're gonna just base this on over the cap's calculator numbers, which again aren't perfect, but they're fun to play around with. If you've never played around with it, that's a great place to learn about how to do like some restructuring and bonuses and how to structure some of these contracts. Because basically every time you hear, well, it's a 5-year, $100 million contract, everyone thinks 2020, 2020, 2020. That is not how it works at all. Not all of that 100 million is going to see the light of day, maybe not even most of it. It's all about structure, and the cap doesn't necessarily hit even when guys get paid because certain kinds of bonuses that can be converted, they push some salary cap down the road, but they also don't all hit on the salary cap. And there's a certain player in Kansas City whose contract is one of the most interesting ones that I've ever seen, and that would be Patrick Mahomes. Every year so far, well, first year, his contract that's supposed to have a big hit this year, it doesn't have that big a hit. Dan, how much money do you think the Chiefs can save on the salary cap by restructuring Patrick Mahomes' deal next year, which would be converting to certain bonuses, which you got to have an owner who can cut the check, like a big check. I think Clark Hunt can cut a big check.
I think so.
I'm going to have to check.
We may have seen it a time or two.
I'm going to Google old oil money here. So how much money do you think they can save on the cap?
I don't know for a fact, but I think 25 million.
You are pretty much there. It's about $23 million. And that's just restructuring him. So if I restructure him and I cut, Anthony Hitchens. How much cap space do you think that sets the Chiefs up for projected in 2022?
Around 50 million.
60 million.
60. Okay, so yeah, a
And
little bit more than that.
60 million. Now, to be fair, you only have 30 guys on the roster there. But you got to remember, filling out the roster means some draft picks, means some lower level signees, that kind of stuff. Here's the other side of it. That is with Tyreek Hill on the final year of his deal, which means he's a $20.6 million cap hit. And so this is another area of contracts that's so important to understand. And I love kind of walking through this because people always say, well, you got to pay the piper eventually. Sort of, but not actually.
Yeah.
It just depends. It just depends. It's not about what you spend. It's about who you spend it on. If you spend it on guys that work out, you can find a way to make the money work. It's when you spend a ton of money on guys that get hurt or whose play drops off. That's when you land yourself in trouble, when that happens multiple times. So $60.1 million, you still have Tyreek Hill's contract. And the way that this works, the first year of a contract always almost has a lower cap hit. So like Frank Clark's cap hit, the first year of his deal was between $6 to $8 million.
Yep.
So let's say they extend Tyreek Hill, and this is where everyone's like, yeah, but you gotta sign, Tyrann Mathieu to a long-term deal, as well as Orlando Brown. Both of those guys could easily have a cap hit that first year between $5 to $10 million.
Correct.
Does that increase over time? Certainly, but so does the salary cap. And that's why signing guys sooner rather than later is almost always a good idea. So if you say sign Tyreek Hill to a mega deal, which he's going to want.
They probably will.
Yeah, he's probably done his hometown discounts for the day.
Oh, yeah.
If you sign him to a mega deal, he probably has that'll cut his cap hit in half next year. Suddenly the Chiefs have $70 million in cap space, and they have at least 60 to 70 the next year. And then the year after, it just balloons upward.
Yep.
So they really are in a place to where, yes, they can extend Orlando Brown and extend Tyrann Mathieu and extend Tyreek Hill and still have room to play around with the roster. And I just wanted to go over that a little bit. Right now, they have $158 million in projected cap space in 2024. Now they only have 10 dudes signed.
Yeah, well,
but that's worth noting. And so, does any of that surprise you, or did you kind of know this? Because you didn't look quite as amazed as I would have hoped.
Well, I did know that they have options. I think we've talked a bit about how you have options with not only Anthony Hitchens, but Frank Clark. There's a couple other players that you could also release. There's always, like you talked about with Patrick Mahomes' contract, there's always going to be way to move around because they did it on purpose.
There's always money in the banana stand.
Like they knew that the cap after last year that it was going to explode at some point, and that's why they said, okay, we'll sign Patrick for a 10-year, $500 million contract. And guess what? We're going to have loopholes here, and here to cut as many different ways around it as we can to get the guys we need so that we continuously supply him with players on both sides of the ball. They knew what they were doing.
Absolutely. And then it's smart planning.
Yeah.
And it's understanding that you need your building blocks. And really, Patrick Mahomes' contract is very, very unusual in that regard. And there's a reason there's nothing else like it in the league. That required an enormous amount of trust, not just from the team's end in Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes in the team. An enormous amount of trust on both ends. And most teams and their franchise quarterbacks, I don't know if they're going to be able to do a deal like that. It's a competitive advantage. And so I think that's such an interesting thing to look at. And it makes you think, by the way, you are clearly not an Arrested Development fan because I said there's always money in the banana stand, and you just flew right by it. Hopefully someone in the comments appreciated it.
It's going to be something. Sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. Matt Pratt, thank you for the super chat. Once we lock up the 1 seed, that's right. I love the confidence. Who is the last team you want to see at Arrowhead in the divisional round? Love the show. Hey, thanks, Matt. I appreciate the kind words. Dan, you go ahead. What's the team you don't want to see?
Maybe the Chargers again. I don't know. Like the ability they showed to run the ball, but that was without Chris Jones, Willie Gay, L'Jarius Sneed, who legitimately all make plays in the run game for the Chiefs. All of them do.
Those are important players in the run game.
Yeah, the Willie Sneed's. I do that every time, every single time. L'Jarius Sneed's ability to play as a pseudo linebacker is a different type of player because he can play physically in the run game too. So, the only guy that could possibly take advantage of the run defense is Jonathan Taylor. That's pretty much the only guy. That offensive line with Jonathan Taylor maybe is it. But there's no team in the AFC that legitimately scares me right now.
Right. And the way that the Colts run their defense doesn't scare me. It's been similar for years in terms of some of the reliance on zone stuff, and that just isn't going to cut it. And I just don't think you beat the Chiefs running the ball by and large, not when their defense is healthy, because you got to run the ball for 300 yards. It's just not going to happen.
It's just Lamar Jackson, but their team is so bad. Like the construction of their team right now just can't do that right now.
I think I'd be spooked to the Chargers a little bit too, simply because Herbert's a great quarterback.
Yeah.
And you never know going shot for shot how that might end up. So the Patriots scare me though, but that's just mostly because of my fear of Belichick planning a one-off.
Yeah.
You know,
that's half a game. Yeah.
It really can. All right. Adam 6. Obviously, Chiefs Kingdom is going to miss Hill and Kelsey on the field. Is Kemp going to be our third receiver? Is it going to be up to our defense? I don't think it'll be up to the defense. In terms of a game plan, I would really like to see them game plan around the remaining weapons they have. Their three best weapons are obviously Mahomes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and the offensive line. And an offensive line can be weaponized. Yes, especially when it's a great run blocking offensive line. Steelers this year, they're not like the Steeler teams of old. They have struggled to stop the run. And so you've got three running backs that you're comfortable handing the ball off to. I would test the waters that first drive and say, you know what, if we just go straight ahead, let's see if they can stop it. Because when they've run like duo, when they've run inside zone, when they've run some power, some stuff like that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire's run the ball really well. Gore's run the ball really well. Williams hasn't run the ball quite as well as those two, but he's an excellent receiver in the backfield, and he can follow his blocks. So I don't think that it's necessarily up to the defense. And it's also worth noting Pittsburgh's offense, and anything can happen. Their offense has been bad. All right, I gotta make sure we don't have any more here. Okay, so what do you think? Who's the third receiver? Do you think
the third is? I mean, it's going to be Demarcus Robinson, Brian Pringle, and Mecole Hardman are going to be your 1, 2, and 3. And then from there, you're going to see Marcus Kemp, because I think that Doris Fountain's also on the COVID list for the practice squad, so he's not going to be able to be called up. So those are going to be your guys, and then you're going to have Noah Gray.
Yep, and that really is how it's going to be, and that's where I can see. Hey, oh my goodness! Hey, hi.
It's a different person. I know. It's okay.
Oh, I know. I would hide from me too. I am the scary evil man, and that's true. I'll tell you what, you've got family stuff to do. I'm sick and going to collapse after this segment is done. The only thing that kept me going was my my boost here. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Appreciate you guys.
For the super chats. Dan, thanks so much for stepping in and keeping me from becoming completely unhinged on here. And that's you see, you're getting the comments here. It's like, hey, wrap it up, Parms. You've got responsibilities.
I forgot Josh Gordon was going to be playing, so that was my fault.
Gordon.
I still think he's the 4.
He may well be the 4, everyone. Now we'll see, because he's gotten a ton of snaps lately, and Reed keeps saying it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Now this right here, this is an unfair comment, and it's not inaccurate, but it's not fair either. Josh Gordon, that would be interesting though if they had the Josh Gordon game, because there are two things that the NFL really doesn't want to see. They don't want to see a Clyde Edwards-Helaire game.
No, they don't.
They've seen
neither
that before.
do Chiefs fans.
But what I'm saying, like the NFL as a whole, they don't want to see the Chiefs come out and say, okay, we're going to run power 25 times, and Edwards-Helaire is going to run for $175. Or whatever, right? They don't want to see that, because that's like, oh crap, for the playoffs. The other thing they don't want to see is a Josh Gordon game.
Nope, they really don't.
Yep, that would really be one of those. Like that is one of those. That is Ant-Man revealing his ability to turn into Giant Man. When you say, no, come on, like not this too. And it also in a way includes Paul Rudd, because he's a Chiefs fan. So
exactly, boom. Connection. You just connected that. It
all ties together. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for your super chats. Ryan should be back next week. Who knows? I don't know. He's just abdicating all responsibilities at this point. We appreciate you guys. We are out of here. Thank you again. And you know what? I just love saying this, because I never get a chance to say it anymore. It's a good week.